Close your eyes for a second and imagine you're back in Britain, somewhere between the 1950s and the 1970s. Not the movie version, the real version. The streets feel narrower, the days feel slower, and life feels more local. You don't have a phone vibrating in your pocket. You don't have a world of noise following you everywhere, and that's why the sounds hit so hard. Because old Britain wasn't silent. It was just different. The soundtrack of daily life came from physical things: metal, paper, glass, engines, coal fires, shoes on pavement. Sounds that were everywhere, so normal that nobody described them, until they disappeared. So in this video, we're going through 10 sounds of old Britain, noises we'll never hear the same way again. And as we go, you might realise something strange. You don't just remember these sounds with your ears, you remember them with your body, because sound is memory. Let's start outside, where Britain used to announce itself the second you opened the front door. 1. The clink of glass milk bottles at dawn. Before cartons became the norm, milk arrived in glass bottles. And the sound of old Britain's morning wasn't a notification. It was clink, clink, clink. The milkman moving along the street, bottles touching, a crate shifting, the soft thud as a bottle lands on a doorstep. Sometimes you'd hear a gate, sometimes footsteps, sometimes the tiny rattle of coins if someone left payment out. That sound meant the day had started, and it wasn't just practical, it was comforting, because it felt like someone was taking care of the basics before you even woke up. 2. The smack of a letter through the door. There was a time when important messages didn't arrive as pings. They arrived as a physical sound, a sharp, unmistakable thwack as letters hit the floor after sliding through the letterbox. You might be half asleep and still know post has arrived, and in old Britain, post mattered more. Bills, job letters, school notes, family news. Life moved through envelopes. The sound of that letterbox wasn't just mail, it was anticipation. 3. The crackle of a coal fire being brought back to life. In homes that relied on coal, winter wasn't something you turned on. Winter was something you fought, and the sound of the fight was the fireplace, the scrape of the shovel, the soft crash of coal pieces, the paper catching, the first fragile crackle, then the deeper, steady burn as the room finally starts warming up. That crackle wasn't background noise, it was reassurance. It said, "We're going to be okay tonight." 4. The slam of a heavy front door and the snap of a latch. Old British doors had weight. You didn't close them gently, especially in terraced houses with strong frames and strong habits. Doors shut with a confident slam, and latches clicked like punctuation. Bang, click. It was the sound of arriving home, the sound that divided outside from inside. And in a way, it also marked time. Dad's home. Kids are in. Evening begins. 5. The ticking of a loud clock in a quiet room. Many homes had one sound that never stopped, a ticking clock, not a tiny modern tick, a proper, audible tick-tock in a room that didn't have constant media playing. In old Britain, silence was more common, so the clock became the heartbeat of the house. You'd sit in the living room, the fire going, tea on the table, and that clock would be there in the background counting the evening down. Tick-tock, tick-tock. A sound that doesn't exist the same way when every room has a screen. 6. The mechanical ring of the old telephone. The old phone didn't vibrate. It didn't play a song. It rang, hard. A sharp mechanical ring that cut through the whole house and made everyone look up at the same time. Because a ringing phone in old Britain wasn't casual. It could be news, it could be family, it could be work, and if it rang late, your stomach could drop before you even picked it up. That sound carried weight. 7. The bus conductor's ticket machine. This is one of the most specific old Britain sounds you can name. The double-decker bus, the engine rumbling, and then, up the aisle, the conductor working the ticket machine. That quick chunk sound, the rip of the paper ticket, the coins counted out, the slight impatience of a queue moving. Even the words had a rhythm. Fares, please. Any more coming down? It's a sound tied to a world where public transport felt more human, more face-to-face. 8. The dial tone and the click of a rotary phone. If you used a rotary phone, you know the sound. The finger goes in the hole, you turn, and the phone fights back. Each number takes effort. Each digit is a tiny mechanical journey. And because it took time, phone calls were shorter and more intentional. You didn't call to send memes. You called because you needed something. That sound, dial, return, dial again, was the sound of communication being physical. 9. The tune of the ice cream van drifting down the street. This one hits people emotionally because it wasn't just sound. It was a message. When you heard that melody floating through the neighborhood, you didn't think music. You thought, ice cream is nearby, and kids reacted instantly. The tune would get louder, then quieter, then louder again as the van turned the corner. Suddenly coins were being begged for, shoes were being pulled on, doors were flying open. It was summer, even on a normal street. And because treats weren't constant back then, the sound felt special. 10. The final sound. The whole neighborhood going quiet at night. Here's the one that people don't expect. Not a sound. The absence of certain noises. In Old Britain, when the day ended, it really ended. Shops shut. Streets emptied. TV schedules ended for the night. Phones stopped ringing. The world didn't keep screaming. You could hear the house settling. You could hear distant footsteps. You could hear the wind. You could hear a train far away. A quieter world created a different kind of mind. And that might be the biggest sound we've lost. The sound of life slowing down together. So why do these noises matter? Because they weren't just background. They were signals. They told you what time it was. They told you what season it was. They told you who was home. They told you what was happening on your street. Old Britain sounded more mechanical, more physical, more local. And modern Britain sounds more digital, more constant, more private. Everyone with their own headphones, their own feed, their own noise. Neither world is perfect. But when you hear one of these old sounds today, just once, it can hit you like a time machine. Because sound bypasses logic. It goes straight to memory. And suddenly you're back, in a living room with a ticking clock, tea on the table, a coal fire breathing, and the street outside holding its breath.